What's up, guys, and welcome back to a brand new episode of Retro Recap. For you guys that don't know the show, this is basically me going over the biggest stories in retro gaming and niche stories that may have gotten overlooked by other shows for the past week, and give you guys my quick thoughts and all the details on it. Now, before I get started on the stories, I just wanted to give you guys a big thank you for last week's episode. It was super successful for us. Did really well in the views for us. Again, it's still small numbers. We still don't have a lot of subs on this channel, but I really do appreciate all the support that we got on that last episode, and I hope you guys really love and support this episode too as well. So let's just jump into the stories, and this week we have 4 big stories that I'm really excited to talk about. So let's get started. So the first one we could talk about is the Atari Mini Pong Jr., and that was announced this week. So Atari has announced the Mini Pong Jr., a new portable version of the classic arcade game made in collaboration with Arcade 1UP, which are absolute behemoths in the retro emulation scene right now that I really love their products, and UNIS, or UNIS. It features an LCD screen, USB connectivity, a lithium rechargeable battery, has local multiplayer support and AI with 10 level settings, and it's set to release this holiday season, but we don't have a fixed date on that quite yet. So my thoughts about it. So I have the trailer linked here below. You can kind of get a visual for what I'm talking about here. I really love the look of it. Again, it's Pong. I have a lot of respect for Pong for what it does, but it's not something I would probably sit there and just, play for a couple hours or anything like that. But I think it's a cool product, especially for this kind of idea of bringing arcade into the home that we've been able to do lately, especially with, the 1UP cabinets and stuff like that. Having your own personal Pong machine to put in the center of a table would be really awesome. And again, Atari's a mixed bag these days. The name doesn't necessarily, mean what it used to mean in terms of who's actually operating behind the scenes and who has access to the IP and the name and stuff like that. And I'm aware of all those facts. But yeah, the Mini Pong Jr. seems like a pretty solid unit. I'm really curious to see what the price proposition is, and that would kind of make or break it. If it was on the lower end and they were able to get it as close to $50, $75, maybe this is something that I could see, picking up as a great, thing to put on a table, beautiful to look, a nice little arcade thing at home, get a couple of rounds in, maybe when some friends come over or something like that. That might be able to do something. If it's exceeding of 100, there's no way I could really justify it in terms of actually getting play out of it. So I would say this is somewhat for me, somewhat not for me. I'm kind of mixed on it, but generally speaking, I like the look of it. I like what they're including with it. The different AI levels is really dope, and as long as it has local multiplayer abilities, then no real major complaints from me. So let me know what you think down below about the Atari Mini Pong Jr. Is this something you have any interest in? Do you have no interest whatsoever? Again, I have a lot of respect for Pong. I've played much Pong, a lot of Pong in my life, and so I got a lot of love for it, but I'm not sure if necessarily I'm looking for my own personal machine. Next one is something I just wanted to give a quick heads up to, see what you guys think about it. So just wanted to give a shout out to an upcoming documentary series, Arcade Dreams, that was just announced. Arcade Dreams is being produced by Rocksteady Media with director Zach Weddington at the helm, and is planned to be a 3-part series covering the past 100 years of arcade and game development, from the earliest electromechanical amusements to the latest virtual reality simulations. So I'm going to link down everything you need down below. I'm going to link down access to their trailer. I'm going to link down their main Arcade Dreams site, and I'm also going to link down their Kickstarter down below. If you watch some of the video content that they've provided as kind of like samples and testers for the series, if you like what you see and you would like to donate, that'll be down below. I threw them a couple bucks, just because I like what they're doing, and they did kind of a mini sampler of Sega Gunfight, I believe, and I was just really impressed with it. I love me some arcade and 80s games, especially when it goes to the 70s, because again, I am decently knowledgeable about games. By no means am I like a savant and I know everything or anything, but I do have a bit of holes in my knowledge, especially once you go into the 70s, the pre-NES, 2600 days. There's a lot of holes in my knowledge, especially with those like physical arcade games. So this is very enlightening to me, and I would really love to see this series actually get done. So I threw them a couple bucks, and I want to see ultimately what they turn into. But if this sounds like anything that you're interested in down below, I'll link everything so you can take a look and decide for yourself. So just wanted to give them a shout out because I think they're doing some really cool things, and I think it's important to support people making retro related content that I think is really dope for the scene. So the next one is probably the most controversial story that broke this weekend. So I saw a lot of stories being written, a lot of Twitter exchanges happening around this story, and I was like, what is going on? And is all around this Golden Axe demo that was coming out. And I was really, really confused at first because I'm like, why are people talking about Golden Axe? Now, admittedly, I loved Golden Axe growing up. I had I think like a Genesis collection on my Game Boy Advance SP or something like that. And I would play the hell out of that one. I would play, Echo the Dolphin and stuff like that. So I was playing a lot of weird Sega games back in the day, and Golden Axe was one of them. So I was really confused as to why is everybody talking about Golden Axe? But once you get into the details, you're like, ooh, okay, this is kind of a messy situation. So let's just get into it. So as part of Sega's 60th anniversary celebrations, shout out to Sega, congrats on 60 years, that's incredible. They announced that they would be releasing Golden Axe, which is a retro-inspired side-scrolling action game in the vein of the original. And basically what I understand of this is this was a game that was in development at one point. It got scrapped for whatever reason, wasn't in the shape that they wanted to. And so they're going to release the game in the state it is as kind of like, oh, isn't this weird alternate reality thing that could have existed? But there's a little bit of controversy about that. So following Wednesday's announcement, artist and programmer Tim Dawson criticized Sega for planning to release the prototype, which he said he helped create with a small team at a now closed Sega Studios Australia under crunch conditions. And again, there's a lot of controversy around crunch specifically. We talk a lot about it on the podcast. Go check that out every single Monday. It comes up live, the Neo Vintage Podcast. I'll link all his tweets down below but the main point is that he felt like the project was my personal nexus of nightmare hours, inept management, industry relations, and heroics achieved with a small team under unreasonable conditions. So it's an odd feeling to see it surface 8 years later without context, credits, and a joke title sequence. Apparently, they had to work in an extremely tight deadline, and alleged interference from management contributed to a stressful working environment. There's much more to the story, and I recommend you go check out his Twitter. I'm going to link everything down below so you can hear it straight from his mouth. Because there's a lot more details into the story, and I'd be sitting here all day if I reread the entire story for you. So I highly recommend you go check out his Twitter down below so you can get a specific, what actually went down. But the major issue, it seems that the Steam page text, which says the game may be janky, may be buggy, may be an artifact of its time, but it offers a unique glimpse into the prospect of a project that could have been. So it seems like, Sega was really like joking around on the Steam page, like, oh, isn't this thing a mess? And he took specific issue with that specifically because so many work hours were poured into it, and it was an absolute hell for him. And so for you guys to kind of make this resurface with kind of a joking thing and dredging up such bad memories, he took issue with that tone. Sega responded and said, "We certainly didn't mean to dredge up painful memories for Mr. Dawson and his former colleagues or appear disrespectful. We've removed the line from the Steam copy that could have been taken as a slur on the development, and would like to reassure everybody that was intended on a comment on the build. We had ported to PC, not the quality of the original work. We're hoping lots of fans to play the prototype and can appreciate the work and his colleagues put into developing this prototype." So quite a problematic situation. Funny thing is, barring all this controversy, this is actually probably something I would have given a shot. I have access to Steam. I'm not a huge PC player, but I'll jump into it to check out something weird. Again, massive Golden Axe fan. I loved playing that as a kid. And so the ability to play like a weird 3D newer version of it would have been really, really cool. But again, knowing that and again, these are all alleged things, but the Sega didn't deny it or anything like that. So it seems like they're kind of being like, hey, that's his experience. Again, it was at a defunct Sega Australia studio, so it doesn't even exist anymore. So I don't know if there's anybody necessarily who can say firsthand one way or another whether he's lying or not. But I don't believe he is. There's no reason to. And especially once you get into the specific details, it makes all the sense in the world, especially if you understand the game development culture, especially if you understand like corporate culture. These kind of things can happen. So again, this is a project that definitely interests me. I would have loved to play it, but knowing all that went behind the scenes behind it kind of turns me off to really touching and supporting this kind of stuff. And it's like, listen, if the original people who made this are not co-signing this release, then I don't really want anything to do with it personally. I can appreciate Sega wanting to throw people a bone and be like, hey, look at this weird thing that we had in the works at one point on our 60th anniversary, and I can really, really appreciate it from that regard. But knowing that the original people are not really co-signing this, they don't like the tone that they're taking with it, and there's not something really that they said that they wanted to see the light of day, then I'm gonna back off it. I'm gonna leave it alone. But let me know down below, what are your thoughts on this? Does that not bother you or sway you one way or another? Do you like to separate the artists from the art, just experience things for what they are? Do you think this is a non-issue? Do you think this is a big thing? Do you feel similar to me that you're kind of turned off to the project now and you would rather not touch it because it's a little messy and you want to be respectful to the original game's creators? Let me know what your thoughts down below. I'm really excited to see what your guys' opinions on this. So I guess the last story we can get into is about the Blade Runner Enhanced Edition being delayed following a lot of technical issues. Now this is a project that I've kind of had my side eye on about since they've announced it, because I thought it was really, really cool. I absolutely adore the original Blade Runner movie, and I love the newer one too by Gabe Villeneuve or something like that. I'm sorry if I butchered your name, but yeah, man, I love Blade Runner so much, and so I'm aware that there was a PC game that came out back in the day, but I've never been able to touch it. I've only watched videos about it. So it seems, let's get some details into this game. So Blade Runner is a 1997 point-and-click adventure game developed by Westwood Studios and published by Virgin Interactive. However, since then, the source code has unfortunately been lost. That's when Night Dive Studios and Alcon Entertainment stepped in and announced that they had reverse engineered it and reworked their proprietary KEX engine that they had used for their other remastered games, and so the enhanced edition will be able to be released on PC and all the modern consoles, which is really, really dope. The remastered Blade Runner adventure game was previously scheduled to release later this year, but it seems like the game is being delayed, unfortunately. So according to Stephen Kick, who's the current Night Dive CEO, remastering Blade Runner has become more complicated than the studio has anticipated. We're in a really difficult middle ground where we can't really do what's typically done in a remaster. We had to invent new pipelines to extract the data and modify it in a way that would present it in a slightly higher resolution or higher fidelity. So yeah, I don't blame them. If you kind of dive into the kind of situation that they walked into, they were already fighting an incredible uphill battle getting this game working and getting this game not only working, but working better than it initially did. Short of actually remaking the game in its complete, totality, they're doing the best they can, so I'm really sympathetic to the cause. Again, once you lose the source code and you're kind of trying to rework and reverse engineer stuff from whatever assets you can possibly garner from this original game, I mean, shout out to them. It's far beyond my abilities to understand how they're doing this. I'm not a game developer. I'm not technically super knowledgeable about that, so I don't know how they're doing this, but I respect it. And again, I was watching some of the comparison footage that I'm going to include right next to me, and I love what they've shown so far. It looks phenomenal. So I'm saying, hey, take your time, release it when it's ready. And so, because again, once a game's out, it's out forever, so release it in a quality state. So that means if you need to push it off to 2021, that's okay. It's not like we're short on games or anything like that right now. We're inundated with new games to play. So I thought this was a really, really dope project that they were working on, and I just wanted to give you guys a heads up that if you were really, really excited about this game and you didn't catch this, yes, it's going to be delayed. We don't have a fixed date yet. They didn't say it's delayed 6 months, 8 months. We don't know. Hopefully it's not too long so we can get our hands on this. I would love to play this probably on, Switch probably. Again, the ease of being able to play like a retro game in bed and stuff like that, I love that personally. And I love that they're releasing it all to modern consoles, because again, this was limited to the PC back then. But yeah, man, I'm not mad at it. I've never been really that mad at delays. Hey, if you're taking the time to make the game better and then rework things and then figure things out to have the smoothest, most polished experience as it releases, I'm never going to be mad at that. So that was the stories for you guys this week. I hope you guys enjoyed this show. Again, I'm going to try my best to do this weekly as much as possible. The only thing is that this show is kind of dependent on the amount of stories available, and I lucked out this time. 4 stories last week, 4 stories this week. But some weeks I would imagine are going to be way lighter on the retro stories, because again, stories that would break on like Polygon and Kotaku and IGN and stuff like that, the big stories, are a steady stream. But retro gaming is a little bit different, and again, with a show that's solely based on talking about retro gaming and specifically new retro gaming stories, it might be a little bit more difficult to have kind of that consistent schedule. But believe me, as long as there's stories coming out, I'm going to be here to talk about them. I'm going to try my very best to make this a steady weekly show, just like the previous news show was. And again, leave any feedback you want down below. Let me know what you think. Do you like the show? Is there things that you would like to see change about the show? Let me know. I'll try to make adjustments here and there. I'm listening to you guys and your feedback. If you have a problem with my editing or my set or anything like that, let me know, and I'm going to try to adjust this and make this the best show as possible and kind of our show and make it an evolving thing. So let me know what your thoughts are down below. Until next time, this is Jabril from Retro Recap. I love you guys. Bye.